My name is Justin Decloux, and I'm here today with
Will Sloan.
And you're listening to the Important Cinema Club. And today we are tackling not a movement, more a brand, really. Japanese v cinema.
I'm excited to talk about this because I think this is a subject that most of you listening aren't really familiar with. And once you enter this door, you're entering into a whole world.
V cinema, which specifically that title is Toei's brand of straight-to-video film. But kind of like Kleenexes, the brand overtook everything that it represents. That if you're talking about a Japanese straight-to-video movie, especially if it's coming out in the early 90s, you usually put it under the qualifier of V cinema.
You may not be familiar with V cinema, but you're likely familiar with some of the directors who have come up through it. Kiyoshi Kurosawa, Takashi Miike, Hideo Nakata, who made Ringu, Takashi Shimizu, who made Ju-on the Grudge and its Hollywood remake, all came up through V cinema, as well as, like the American Poverty Row studios of yore, the V cinema sector was a place for veteran directors to continue working, notably Teruo Ishii, who made Orgies of Edo and Horrors of Malformed Men, and someone we'll discuss in a minute, Masaru Konuma, who made Flower and Snake.
Now, looking at this kind of group of films, I asked myself the question of why am I fascinated by these kind of movements? And I linked them to, regular listeners will know, me and Will are obsessed with Poverty Row.
Drink.
Yep, we said it. And V cinema, in a way, is like that, in that it is something that was just done for financial reasons, and that it was, like Will just said, a breeding ground of directors, let's be honest, probably past their prime, coming back and making movies. Like all the old school veterans, got classics under their belt directors that are working in V cinema are often not really doing it for the love of the game. They're doing it because they need to pay rent on their house.
Yeah, and we this came to our attention because Arrow Video just put out a beautiful new Blu-ray set called V Cinema Essentials, Bullets and Betrayal. Well worth getting.
Is this episode sponsored by Arrow? No, it is not. Me and Will bought these box sets like suckers.
That's right. We went out to our local video store and
Bay
bought
Street Video.
Look forward to the tax write-off in my next year's tax return.
And V cinema is something that I remember hearing all the way back in the early 2000s. But back then, and even now, it is something that is very difficult to penetrate for English-speaking viewers.
Well, I feel like direct-to-video movies in general are kind of like the dark matter of film history, and especially direct-to-video movies from foreign lands. Like, where do we even start? I think most people like us are probably familiar with V cinema mostly because of
Takashi Miike. Yeah.
In particular, Fudo, The New Generation from 1996 was sort of his breakthrough film.
And it was a breakthrough because some real eagle-eye programmers, for example, Toronto International Film Festival, they grabbed it and they played it. And so you're taking something that was always meant for just direct-to-video consumption and you're blowing it up, making it a cult film and offering people things that you can't find anywhere else in international cinema.
And the great scholar Tony Raines, one of the great experts on Asian film, was also a particular champion of these films. He saw in V cinema, something in the tradition of filmmakers like Don Siegel,
Termite Art,
et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. That like these either grizzled veterans or someone looking to achieve something within the confines of genre that they can't do anywhere else. All right, I'm using a lot of like big words, descriptors here. V cinema is also like action, sex. That's what's selling. That's what you're throwing on the box. And that's what you want the consumer to be like picking up off the video shelf.
Much like American direct-to-video movies of the 1990s too, right?
Do you consider like American direct-to-video films a wave in the same way that I think of like V cinema? Not really.
Not really, but I mean, they're similar in the sense that it's like low-budget movies in low-brow genres, typically targeted towards like male viewers, very much selling the genre more than anything else. And also, both American and Japanese direct-to-video movies, like they softcore sex movies, but not hardcore.
No, never hardcore. I think that's
that was
very
a whole
important.
Other sector.
Because then you can put it on the video store shelves in the 90s, and as anyone who talks about that era would say, like, is that the big Hollywood production would sit on the same shelf as like the shitty direct-to-video movie, and that it would cost the same to rent. And by consequence, they could get a foothold if they had cover art that was appealing enough. Now, it should be said that the 90s are also an interesting period of making direct-to-video movies because we have not crossed over into it being acceptable of having technical limitations that would associate it not being a regular movie. And I'm putting this in big air quotes. In that, like, all the films that we watch today are shot on film. They have, like, professional crews, a lot of actors that worked in other things.
They look beautiful,
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, it's coming as well from Toei, which is a film studio who just started this as an arm to kind of like not funnel talent, but just get something on shelves that could sell for, and this is wild, video cassettes in the early 90s in Japan were 12,000 to 15,000 yen. Now, and this is with the yen doing very badly, that is $120 to $150 Canadian. Also, there were 16,000 video stores, and they would sell up to 30,000 tapes. And the budgets, especially the first film we're going to talk about, the first V Cinema film, Crime Hunter, were roughly $550,000. That is a huge, like, raking it in.
And yeah, you know, the business model for these movies is much like the business model of any B movie from anywhere, where it's like, yeah, there are 16,000 video stores, so you can sell X number of videos for X amount of dollars and get Y amount of profit. And just a little further history, Toei, the studio that's most associated with V Cinema, you know, it was relatively late to enter the Japanese film market. I learned this from the booklet that came with the Arrow video guide, by the way. I also want to give a shout out to the V Cinema Notebook.
Tom Mess.
Yeah, a series of articles by Tom Mess.
Which now, if you want to read, I was looking at them again, you have to go through the Wayback Machine. They're just gone.
If it's possible to put a link to them.
I'll put it in the show notes of this. Tom Mess is the king, especially in the early 2000s, of me wanting to read about, like, not the mainstream Japanese cinema. His book on Takashi Miike, Agitator, is one of, like, the great tomes, especially of just tracing an artist working within that era.
But yeah, Toei was relatively late to enter the Japanese film market compared to the other studios that you may have heard of. And then it was very budget conscious. It's very much known for its, you know, punchy, economical Yakuza films of the 60s and 70s. Certain studios were less well-equipped to survive when television hobbled the Japanese film industry in the 60s and 70s. Dai, for example, which, you know, in better days released...
Gamera!
Yeah, well, they also released Rashomon, you know, but they went out of business in the early 70s. And then Nikatsu had their Roman porno films.
Yeah, that was their answer of, like, what can we give that TV can't? Breasts, and more breasts.
Yeah.
And I do, before we get into V Cinema proper, I want to talk about a movement that happened in 1982, and it lasted to 1992 before it went bankrupt. It was the Directors Company. And what's interesting about this is that it's an organization that was made up of filmmakers, many of them that would go into V Cinema, who were like, we want to have, you know, control the reins. We're going to make the movies that we want to make. They'll be genre infused, but, you know, they'll be a little bit more free, if you will. So that includes, like, Mermaid Legend by Toshiharu Ikeda, who directed the female Scorpion film that's on the V Cinema box set. There's Door by Banmei Takahashi, who directed Neo Shinpaira, Zoom Goes the Bullet. There's also films like The Crazy Family they made, Sogo Ishii, Kiyoshi Kurosawa directed for the Directors Company. But it just shows that, like, they had this, you know, utopian idea of what all these young filmmakers could do. And then they found it collapsed on itself in the early 90s. And they're like, all right, well, I guess we're going to directing V Cinema. And I think that is the thing that is attractive about this, is the promise of, or the hope that, like, there's going to be artists working within these very limited confines and what they can deliver. The diamond in the rough, if you will.
I gotta say, though, just watching the 3 movies that I watched for this episode, sorry, I would have watched more, but I was very sick this week, and I lost my mind and couldn't read subtitles.
I don't mean to laugh. Will was in a lot of pain. You know what would make him feel better? Going to patreon.com/theimportantcinema.
That would make everyone feel happier. These are formulaic movies. Like, one of the appeals of them, I think, is that they feel like pastiches of, you know, crime movies, Japanese crime movies and American crime movies. And I don't know, it's just nice to see the craftsmanship. You know, they're beautifully made, beautifully shot, well acted. I just kind of like them on the level of just being like simple, entertaining movies.
Yeah, like the first V Cinema film, Crime Hunter: Bullets of Rage from 1990, which was directed by Tomishi Okawa, and you may not have heard his name before because he mostly worked in the, V Cinema trenches, mostly directing action films as well. This is one of the guys, and we're going to be talking about two today, that are young filmmakers, that like this was their chance to do something with, a meager budget, but still the facilities that Toei can provide, while the V Cinema box set is mostly old hands. That like this is like one of the last films that they're directing. Crime Hunter: Bullets of Rage seems to be like the text of V Cinema. It's what you want, which is like it's under an hour. It's very heavily inspired by 80s action films. It almost feels like the dying gasp having been made in 1989 of like, all right, what are the aesthetics and the tropes of this? Let's crank it to 11 and just put it on screen in one blast.
Yeah, it's also like if you get the box set, it's the one I recommend starting with.
Yeah, it's on the first disc too, I believe, isn't it?
So it takes place in the United States in a sort of little
USA,
little Tokyo neighborhood, and we open with two cops, Joe and Duck, and they're hunting down a thief named Bruce. Bruce has stolen $5 million from a church. And they arrest him, but they're ambushed by his accomplices, a gang of men wearing clown masks like the Joker gang, and they gun down Duck, the younger cop. So we next see Joe at a hospital. He flees almost the moment we see him there because he's in pursuit of revenge.
Mm-hmm. And also this movie's under an hour long, so we got to get going.
And, remember, I mentioned that Bruce stole $5 million from a church. Well, our hero, Joe, quickly partners up with a gun-toting nun, Lily, and the two of them, who do not have sex, by the way.
Well, which is very rare for these types of films.
Yeah, you think they would. There's a respectful distance between the two of them.
She's a lady of the cloth, of course. She couldn't be having any kind of relations in that way.
She does have a gun, though, when she uses it. Mm-hmm. But the two of them are united in their pursuit of the sinister Bruce. One for revenge, one to get the money back that was stolen from her church. And this is a pretty ideal direct-to-video thriller. The action's very good. Got a lot of cool car chases, cool musical score, cool just atmosphere.
Now, aesthetically, this made me think of Poverty Row a lot, and like watching Westerns in the way the action is shot, in that I become very aware of like that camera ain't moving very much when we're doing these things. So it'll be like someone firing and then it'll cut to a static shot of like someone being hit. When the camera does move in this movie, it's like when we watch a Poverty Row film, we're like, whoa, the camera moved. You can feel that everyone on set either had to distract the producer so he didn't know what they were doing, or had to like do it in the last 10 minutes right before the sun went down.
I will say it's very effective in this movie how the writer and director, Toshimichi Okawa, he establishes the relationships between the characters in a very short amount of time. Mm. And I think he makes it very convincing. I was very impressed by just the economy of the movie. It's like, it's a full hour shorter than most like American action films.
But you watch it and you're not like, I'm missing this. Like, no. I needed this specific thing. I mean, this is the movie of someone who clearly loves action movies, is waiting for the chance to do it. And that kind of vibe of Japanese, action cinema is already elevated in a way, so you can get away with the, narrative shortcuts you would take within this kind of film.
But the big selling point of this movie, I think you'll agree, blood squibs.
So many blood squibs.
So many blood squibs. The action in the movie is sort of obvious comparison is John Woo, but
I would not compare it to John Woo,
but without the poetry.
Americanized. Well, the thing about blood squibs is we watch this and we're like, the good old days. There was no other way to do it short of going the spaghetti western route and just getting rid of that completely.
That said, I do think Okawa leans into the blood
he loves it.
Squibness of
almost
it all.
Like Paul Verhoeven-esque in the way they're exploding. And like
he likes the texture of it.
You put the camera to slow motion, that's eating up a lot more film, which is costing more money, but you just static and you have the person go down, and everybody when they get shot like 100 times before they crumple.
So, this is a really fun movie. I think the other movies we're going to talk about have a little bit more poetry to them. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Now, I did watch a few more on the set because I was curious in Neo Shinpaira, Zoom Goes the Bullet, because it was directed by Banmei Takahashi, who did The Amazing Door, which was recently put out by TerrorVision and Third Window Films. Third Window Films being part of the Director's Company collection. And this one I was surprised because it has kind of negative reviews on Letterboxd, and it's because it's an action film only in window dressing. Like the cover is the hero on his back, gun pointed up in the air. That never happens in the movie. The closest comparison I could make to it is it's just a homage to Godard's Breathless, which is that there's a loser guy who's part of the Yakuza who learns that he has to take the fall for a murder. And it's basically 90 minutes of him hanging out with a narcoleptic car thief who gets very aroused by guns going off, and him putting off the decision he has to make of taking the fall and going to prison. So there's no action scenes. It's very comedic. It's visually inventive. And you see a movie like this, like, inspired by Breathless, you'd expect, young buck wanting to make his... No, this was directed by a guy who had been directing basically softcore pornos since 1972. He had made 55 feature films before making Zoom Goes the Bullet.
Wow.
And like the star of this, and this was one of the first movies he would star in, Sho Aikawa, I apologize if I'm saying that name incorrectly, this was his start as a V Cinema star. Like Poverty Row, V Cinema has a stable of actors that you almost feel like a warm blanket when you see them show up in movies. Sho, you've definitely seen him if you've seen any Takashi Miike film. He is the co-star in Dead Alive, which is like, the two V Cinema stalwarts, him and Riki Takeuchi. And then we'll go on to be in like Zebra Man. And he is an actor. And this just shows how not deep English language audiences have gone into V Cinema. He has on IMDb 154 credits. And I went, that can't be right, because I know he has a lot more movies. Well, thankfully, Letterboxd has probably closer to his credits, 234. And that's because there's so little documentation in English that no one has even bothered to upload most of these films to IMDb. But It's easier to do on Letterboxd, so you can find them there. And something about V Cinema, especially as it goes along, not really the period we're talking about, is that you get into, to be quite honest, more of a porn selling thing, in that like you get part 12 of a movie. So even the actor of Zoom Goes the Bullet starred, for example, in Shura ga Yuku, aka Violence Action. There's 13 films in that series. I said porn. We could also compare it to like any of the Poverty Row westerns that have like 20 films in the series.
Can I also just say, I think it's amazing how many Japanese like direct-to-video movies are called something like rape, brutal assault.
Yes.
And then it's like, oh boy, I feel great logging this on Letterboxd.
No, it's just because you don't understand the language and the intricacies of how it actually plays out.
That's a good point. So the next movie I watched, which I really enjoyed, is Stranger, directed by Shunichi Nagasaki from 1991.
Another young buck, had not directed any softcore pornography up until then.
This director is best known, and I'm using that loosely, for a sort of J-horror movie called Shikoku, which you may have seen in video store shelves like in the 2000s.
Part of the wave when Ringu came out, and every distributor is like, you got a Japanese horror film, we're putting it out, doesn't matter what it is.
That's right. But in this one, the main character is Kiriko, a female taxi driver. She's working this job after serving time in prison for bank fraud. She had transferred $1 million to her boyfriend's account. And so in the present day, she lives a quiet, almost hermit-like existence as a taxi driver, minding her own business, continually fending off the creepy advances of men.
Because she works a late shift as well.
And much of the movie derives its power from that nocturnal atmosphere. It's a mood piece. There's a quiet to the movie. There's a melancholy to the movie. There's a sort of like drifting around in Tokyo, under the neon lights kind of vibe to the movie. But then it also turns into a quasi remake of Duel.
Yes, that there's someone that's following her who's driving around in a Range Rover. She doesn't know who he is. She doesn't see his face. She just sees he has a burnt hand. And so as she continues to go on with her job night to night, and she says, I just want to continue working the night shift, she is haunted by, is this next man that I see someone with the burnt hand? Is this the guy? And she doesn't know why he's doing this. Very small spoiler alert. She never figures it out. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very unusual movie. It's a slow burn movie. Mm-hmm. And the interactions that she has with all the other people in the movie, they run parallel to and are just about as important as the mysterious duel with this Range Rover.
Yeah, like the thriller subplot. If you look at the cover of it, it's very misleading of this movie. The VHS cover is like her like licking a knife. And it's like, there's nothing like that really in the movie. If anything, it's like these interactions with customers that include like an older man bringing a younger woman home, a young kid who just wants to drive around and feel like an an adult, and other kind of male figures that are continually coming into the protagonist's life, like someone else she knows who is trying to take care of her, or the asshole boyfriend that she runs into as well.
So I don't know. I think it's kind of a beautiful movie. I just liked being in it. I liked the particular strain of melancholy that it taps into.
This is a film that the director of the picture brought to like the studio and said, hey, I have the script. I believe it would fit within the confines of what you're doing in V Cinema. And they went, okay, yeah, if you can bring it under budget, you can go do it, which is like the dream.
This is what you want. You want to hear about somebody who you're always hoping in a B movie like this that it's like, as long as you hit certain marks, you can do whatever you want between those marks. And so rarely do you actually get that.
I think you just like, as a filmmaker, they just get beaten down, right? I remember hearing some like old school fans of Hollywood like Martin Scorsese say stuff like, even the greatest ones that we get coming out of Hollywood or Poverty Row, why would they do it? Like Martin Scorsese was asking this question, like, no one's going to care. It's going to come and go. There's no market of like us talking about it now. It's not even like a spark in their eye. At a certain point, once you've done like 30 films, why would you be like, all right, this is what I'm going to, give as much effort as I can? And it's, I think, just in some people, like they can't help it. They need to try as hard as they can, even if it's like a broken clock thing. Other times you get something like Stranger, which is like, I'm young. I probably don't know any better. So I'm going to try to do this at my maximum within the confines that are presented to me.
But I think more often than not, it's the companies. It's the working conditions and like the people with the money that wear the filmmakers down.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, you've talked to people who have worked for the Asylum, and it's like the Asylum who make like Sharknado and stuff like that.
Like the dream of that would be, all right, your budget is like $250,000. This is a new movie coming out. Go and make a version of this with a similar type.
Here's Eric Roberts and Michael Madsen.
Bring it under budget and you'd be good to go. As opposed to the reality of it, which is them being like, you have 4 days to shoot, which, all right, work within it. But also we need to approve every costume. There's too many camera moves. It's shot too darkly.
Can't be funny.
Not
humor
stylized.
Doesn't travel.
Which is like, oh, that's why the movies are the way that they are. By consequence, is that why it's been able to continue as well? Like, do they have that magic sauce? And what is the value to them of being a business, doing things at the most minimum possible amount? Is there a dream of some kind of artistic kind of like satisfaction that they just dropped away decades ago?
I will say, though, a movie like Stranger or Crime Hunter, Bullets of Rage, like the fact that they're shot on film.
Yeah, I mean, it makes such a big difference.
It just goes so far.
Like Stranger, just driving around in Tokyo, you have those neon lights. You have
it's kind of Michael Mann atmosphere to it,
You have a score by Yuji Ono, who's most famous for doing a lot of the Lupin the Third animes. That's just like propelling it all as well. I could look at it and be like, yes, I remember when I was in Tokyo and I took a taxi with Patrick Macias, writer of Tokyo Scope.
You did? Wow.
Co-host of Tokyo Scope podcast. And we took a taxi and I was like, whoa, a taxi in Japan? You don't open the doors. They hit a button and the door opens themselves.
Oh, wow.
I know.
Did you go to one of those public toilets from the Wim Wenders movie, Perfect Days?
Those are art installations. They're not, common toilets that you would find very easily.
I don't care. Whatever it is, I'm going to shit in it.
Yeah, I'm going to have a big dump. And I'm going to turn the way so people can see me as it's happening and they can't control it through those big glass things. So let's jump many a years over to the other film that we watch, XX, Beautiful Hunter from 1994.
Directed by Masaru Konuma.
Had you been familiar with him before?
No. I mean, I had seen Orgies of Ito, but I didn't look into his reputation as well. A strange man.
Yeah, a guy who made a lot of sex films and was very passionate about it. Did not necessarily just see it as, all right, I just need to make money. According to everybody that worked with him, like, he loved movies and he would drive his cast and crew to basically ruins trying to make the movies that he was making, which were stuff like Woman in the Box 2.
Well, on this Arrow box set, I watched the introduction. There's a Japanese film critic who introduces these movies, and he says something like, Masaru Konuma was married 4 times, but despite that didn't necessarily mean he liked women.
Yeah.
which I think is such a funny thing to say.
I watched a documentary that was made about him called Sadistic and Masochistic, directed by Hideo Nakata, the director of Ringu.
And I promise I'm going to watch this movie. I've downloaded it, and it's too late now, but I want to watch it.
Hideo Nakata was the, I think, assistant director on some of his films. And I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Nakata's movies, but I feel that burning passion in that he worked with this man. Ringu comes out. He's like, what can I put my cachet on? I'm going to just make a documentary about this, let's be honest, kind of like on the outside filmmaker. Now, what's fascinating about this documentary that I've rarely seen other films tackle when you're talking about a cult figure like this is that not only is the director featured, but you also have everyone that he worked with, and you get all of their perspectives on him. It's polite in some ways, in that like at one point he's watching a movie with one of the actresses that stars in the film, like just the most vile stuff shot on film. They're sitting in the theater, but you also get like how difficult he was as everyone talks about it. All of them like 70-year-old men smoking like 900 cigarettes. At one point, one of the guys is like, the actress, she didn't know how to make sounds when she was having an enema, so I put the earphones on her and I just had to, talk her through it. And then the director's like, wait, so how did you know? He's like, well, I had to practice the day before. And I was like, all right, am I reading between the lines here? And, it sounds so vile, but we need to be clear here. All these films are shot on film, and that they were like theatrically distributed in the 60s and 70s, and that like they were at a level that American pornography never even got close to, mostly because they were hardcore. Japan, they were able to form as an answer to the outgrowth of television, like, all right, we're going to give you this stuff. It's not real, but look at it on the big screen. Just like you can't see this anywhere else. And this was one of the guys leading the charge, if you will. But it's the 90s. You got rent to pay.
And so he's down here in the muck with the V Cinema.
Yeah. A different kind of muck.
I say in the muck. I mean, these are still beautiful looking movies. It's amazing about Japanese genre films. It's like we grew up seeing so many of these movies in pan and scan and stuff. And when you see, like, even these direct-to-video movies just look so beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, they're amazing.
Studio films.
Me and Will, our expertise is Hong Kong cinema. And they also had that kind of like technical, baseline for most of the movies that we watch, and they're shot on film. There's this particular expectation, but like a lot of those Hong Kong techniques that you see in all those martial arts films, people like the Shaw brothers were grabbing Japanese technicians and bringing them to the Shaws, and so it's just like an extension of that in Hong Kong. And in these Japanese films, even though you're dealing with direct-to-video stuff, like this is the pure like these guys, especially on XX Beautiful Hunter, in the featurettes, they talk about on the Arrow Blu-ray that the director was working not with his usual gang, that this was the like Toei V Cinema. So there's even like a slicker level to his craft because they know what they're doing. So like this is a ripoff of La Femme Nikita.
Yeah, really fun movie. So this one has a striking opening scene. You've got a 6-year-old girl who's led through a Catholic church into this strange ritual. She's surrounded by men in robes, kind of eyes wide shut-ish, but she's given a gun and ordered to shoot this man who's strapped to a chair beneath the crucifix. And he's crying, and she's trembling, and she shoots him. And doing so, she's entered into this secret society, but really she's like enslaved in this secret society as this like trained assassin.
Enslaved, eh? I hope there's no sexual connotations to that come up in these movies.
Now, cut to her as a young adult woman. She's a hardened assassin. We join her as she's massacring this house full of people, but she's been followed by a male reporter, Ito, who caught photos of her. When she catches up to him, he tells her that he has the photos, but they're in a locker.
Yeah.
And so he becomes her sort of captive. As her captive, the two of them, form this relationship that begins to undo the indoctrination she's received.
So, when I think of V Cinema, I think of action and I think of sex. The last two, they were not sexy films. And this is the guy that like, his bread and butter is sex.
So did you find this movie sexy?
Well, I mean, when I say sexy,
there are breasts in it.
There's many breasts. I was laughing a lot. I feel like this is one that the director could direct in his sleep because of the expectations that are, put upon him. When I say I laugh, because like her prisoner's like, please don't kill me. And I think he like touches her and she's like, oh, and she's like, you've never felt the touch of a man. Let me go down on you. And boom, win her over instantly.
Yeah,
that's all that it takes.
That's pretty good. I mean, this movie, it was fun.
Yeah, it was fun. I watching it, I thought, you know what I don't like? La Femme Nikita. I've never gotten that movie.
I've never seen La Femme Nikita.
It's not very good. I was looking through Luc Besson's filmography. Very bad man.
Yeah.
And I was like, do I like any of his films that he's directed? Like, I like the idea of The Fifth Element.
Do you like Leon the Professional?
Not really. I was never a big fan. Even as a teenager.
It's a little creepy too, isn't it?
Yeah, based on his real relationship that he was having at that time. But boy, that the success of La Femme Nikita, which was already inspired by like Hong Kong cinema, like it spread everywhere, including this movie.
I do find something interesting about these movies that they're all like heavily influenced by American or
Taxi
like,
Driver, 80s action cinema.
or it's like, you know, Luc Besson made these French like crime action movies that were heavily influenced by American cinema. And now like he's heavily influencing, you know, this Japanese movie. It's this, you know, cultural stew.
So XX Beautiful Hunter, I had fun with it. I was curious to like, this spun off into like 900 other films, like XX titles. I was like, how degenerate does it get in those ones? Because this one, by the last half hour, you're like, all right, she's being trussed up, she's being whipped by a dominatrix, you know, all kind of basic stuff.
And I assume that this is the Masaru Kanuma touch.
Yeah, exactly. That he's like, all right, what do you want me to do? All right, get up there. Like even the clips from the documentary that I watch, I'm like, now this stuff looks really weird. And like, you're not getting this because he's working within the commercial expectation. And he does it very well. I watched it.
I mean, I will say, like, XX Beautiful Hunter is a really punchy, like movie that delivers.
Yeah, exactly. That if you see that cover, is it going to give you what's on the cover? Absolutely.
But I will say that of the 3 movies I watched, and I will watch more, Stranger is the one that felt the most exceptional to me.
Yes. I mean, even in that Tom Mess series of essay, he like singles out Stranger as like, oh yeah, this is the one of like someone brought it to the V Cinema and they gave her the money to do it and keep going. Like, we're not talking about like a Riki Takeuchi movie that's like part 9 or anything, but is there gold to be found in those? I remember I went to a mall in Japan and they just had DVDs as far as the eye can see of V Cinema. And I was like, I don't know what any of this is.
You just bought it all.
I should just bought it all. Like, all right, let me get a big bit. And it was going for pennies too. It was going for like $2 per DVD because they're like, it has no value. These often were rental copies. And where are they going to go now? I mean, Japan or Tokyo is like, Toronto or anywhere in North America. There's not really any DVD or Blu-ray market. So they're mostly collecting dust in like mall outlet stores at this point.
Have you been to any of the DVD stores that still remain in Toronto, Chinatown lately?
I mean, they're just bootleg stores at this point. They'll probably mostly sell pornography, right?
Well, there's one in the basement of, what was that, Chinatown Mall?
It's gone. Oh, wait, in the basement of the mall?
Yeah.
Not the one that sold real ones that you were...
No, not that one. It's in the mall.
Yeah.
There's
Did
one
you buy that Robin B. Hood special edition that we walked by every time?
Okay, this is
the Important Cinema Club Deep Lore.
Yeah, Deep Lore. So there's a Jackie Chan movie called Robin B. Hood.
Terrible.
Bad film. But there's a gigantic box set for the movie. That came out in 2006.
I think it had a baby bottle or something like that.
It had a bunch of merch in it. And for years it was sitting there for like $50 or something, and then it'd be like $30, and I kept thinking like, what a weird thing. And then finally, when it was down to $10 and they're going out of business sale, it's like, all right, I'm gonna get it.
So you did get it.
And now I've been lugging it around from home to home.
You probably own 2 copies of Robin B. Hood too, because you probably have the Dragon Dynasty copy as well.
Correct. A movie I don't even like.
But getting back to V Cinema, I do think that this is an untapped market, that for a long time it was very hard for any company after the DVD boom to get these movies out into the world. Like during the DVD boom, we have the most like hideous Blu-ray. What was the company? Arts Magic? Do you have any of those?
No.
Oh, yeah. And they put out a bunch of them, mostly on the back of Takashi Miike, who was the one that was able to cross over. And so it was like so many, but then they didn't sell because there's no contextual stuff. No one knows what they are. They're just putting it on the market. So it collapsed. And I got the sense that like Japanese distributors were like, all right, why would we work with you at this point? Like, why give it to you? But thankfully, companies like Arrow are able to do the sets that recently came out. And it's a good selection of movies too to go through.
Yeah. And I just feel like we're scratching the surface here. I would love to see more collections like this because these are short, very technically proficient movies that deliver.
Mm-hmm. You know, Shaw Brothers, tired. V Cinema, yeah. Like, you could probably go like 8 years when we did like a Shaw Brothers episode and we're like, oh, why won't anyone put them out on Blu-ray? What's happening? And now it's like, no more. I don't want any of these.
We're looking for new horizons.
Yeah, exactly. And V Cinema is where it's at. If anyone listening to this has V Cinema films they'd like to recommend, especially ones that have not been released in North America, I'm going to be honest. If it's been released with English subtitles, I probably know it. Give me the ones that are out there that like no one has subtitled them. They're floating and they have value. There's a few people online who review stuff like Pachinko Pop on Letterboxd where he'll just like review stuff that has no subtitles. Like he loves reviewing. There's a series called Truck Rascals that are all about guys driving around in real big decked out trucks in the 70s. And it's like a huge series directed by a guy who did like a lot of Sony Chiba films. He even did a zine on it. And like follow him if you want like Japanese discoveries from like all over the place, like 50s into V cinema, because again, there is so much to be discovered.
So when's our episode about Roger Corman's New Horizons?
Ugh. I wish I could get, so I've spoken to someone who I shall not name, who, I don't know if he worked, but he knew a lot of people who worked on them. And it was like
James Cameron?
Yeah, James Cameron. Wait, New Horizons. But isn't New Horizons like the 90s though?
That's right.
At that point. That's when they were making all those softcore films. And like the only one you would get that had any interest was, what's the one directed by the guy who did Idle Hands?
Brain Dead.
Brain Dead, which is interesting.
And that's the last Roger Corman produced movie that anyone pays any attention to.
Yeah, after that,
it came out in like 1990.
Well, isn't there, what's the Black Scorpion? That's one of his, right?
Yeah. Well, there was that TV show about there was the Black Scorpion movie, then there was the TV show,
yeah.
which was aired on Spike TV, which was terrible.
I mean, the closest we get to anyone trying to dive into those depths is Schlock Pit, because they'll like go through that. And I will say they're very honest about those, like the films of being like, yeah, this is good. I'll look on Letterboxd. I'm like 2 stars. Come on, guys. But listen, in that Drek, you got to find something. No, not every company can be PM Entertainment.
Yeah.
Which like we're genuinely trying to make entertaining films. Instead, Roger Corman is a guy that at that point had been making movies for 40 plus years. And, you know, like I said before, you just get worn down, I guess, as you keep going.
So, Justin, do we have any letters?
As per usual, you can send letters to Important Cinema Club Podcast at gmail.com. And our first letter is from Alex. And they ask, hey, Justin and Will. First off, I want to extend my heartfelt thanks for the podcast. Well, thank you very much. Your episodes on Hong Kong cinema are favorites of mine, and I'm forever grateful to the exposure to such demented classics as Mr. Vampire 3, The Untold Story, and The Boxer's Helmet.
It's interesting to find out which movies are the ones that people go out and watch.
How do people discover Hong Kong cinema now, if you're young? Can you stumble into it? Like for me, I had like forums that I could go to.
I think it's Letterboxd now.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, so you follow like a Letterboxd.
Yeah,
exactly.
There are lists, and also people follow other people and they learn from other people.
Right.
I think Letterboxd. I actually, my hot take, I think Letterboxd is good for film culture.
I think Letterboxd is great for film culture because at the end of the day, it's just an individual that like you can't boost your own Letterboxd reviews unless you write a lot. I don't know.
Well, it's just like what it's done for like word of mouth for like smaller or more obscure movies.
And I will say that like, you know, people complain like, oh, Letterboxd is bad. I always see these reviews, these like pithy one word. Block that person. Just block them. You'll never see them again.
I mean, I'm sympathetic to that complaint, but first of all, I never look at the popular reviews tab anymore.
No, me neither. I will say, Letterboxd, I love you. Just reorganize, like when you click on a page, it's like all over the place, like people you follow, popular.
Yeah. I'll also just say Letterboxd is the least slopified social media app.
Absolutely,
right now.
I don't know how it is advertising on the free website. I don't have the free website. I pay for it. I use it enough. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I pay for it too.
But like the fact that like you can't post GIFs or stuff like that in comments.
Just like there aren't ads everywhere.
Exactly. If you pay for it.
Right.
I think that if you don't, there is ads all over the place. But yeah, I could discover so many. I've gone so many times. I'm like, this person has excellent taste. What have they given 5 stars? Oh, I've never heard of that movie. Click on it. That's how I discover stuff.
Yeah. And, you know, I like seeing what my buddies are watching.
Me too. I mean, it can really also, you know, I don't follow that many people on Letterboxd, but the people I do follow, I trust you. So, like, if I see, like, you give a bad review to something, I'm like, or a good review could make me go,
You know, I was in my sick bed this week. I was doing what I always do when I'm sick, which is watching kung fu movies on Tubi. And I saw a movie show up called Sleeping Fist, which had Simon Yoon and Beardy from Thundering Mantis.
Very familiar with Sleeping Fist.
I checked Letterboxd to see Justin's given it 2.5 stars. And I think, oh, this must be really bad then. And then I think, I'm going to watch it anyway.
Was it bad?
It was all right.
It's fine.
It's fine.
Yeah.
You know?
That was probably part of my wave where I think I had done Thundering Mantis on Golden Ninja Video, and I was like, I need another Beardy movie. Give me a good one that's in, you know, that gray Mario public domain stuff.
Thing is, you got Beardy, you got Simon Yoon.
Yeah, I know.
I'm happy. Anyway, we're not sponsored by Letterboxd either.
I would love to be sponsored. That's an ad that I would want to do.
Yeah.
Yes. And Letterboxd is like, why? You do free advertising for us.
There are so many things that I would love to sponsor us, but at the end of the day, who sponsors podcasts? It's like gambling apps.
Oh yeah, I don't want to do that. So
Yeah.
what would be the price if a gambling company approached? I don't think there would be a price high enough.
I don't think I would do that unless it was $5 million or something. then I might do it. Yeah. That's my price.
We can sell out $5 million.
Yeah. Just make it so I don't have to work again.
So we only do one episode.
Yeah.
And there's that gambling ad, and then it's like, all right, and then
We're out of here.
I'm out of here. I will also say that most people who have reached out to me for special feature stuff, Important Cinema Club, Golden Ninja Video, never heard about it. They saw my review on Letterboxd.
Interesting.
I'm not even kidding. Like, because I think it's the great kind of like equalizer in that way, in that like, you know, you click on a movie, they don't have to go to my website to find what I think about it. It's just there in that like, you know, giant database. Except for you son of a bitches who are taking all the credits off posters. Stop that. Have you noticed that trend?
No.
Oh yeah, people were talking about it in the Important Cinema Club Discord, which is like people will go and rip off all the credits off a poster, so it's just like the image with the title.
Yeah.
You'll see that a lot, especially on like Poverty Row films. And I mean, the people doing that, I feel they may not all be right in the head. Like, what are you doing? Just like going, you know, using AI to remove text, putting it back up.
Yeah.
Just give us the original thing. Make it all wrinkled too. Like, I know I'm in for a good time when I see a Taiwanese film and it's just like a low res photo that was published on like Hong Kong Movie Database like 10 years ago.
Completely agree.
Sorry. So the letter continues. I am humbly requesting an episode on wuxia, a genre of films I find consistently beautiful and transporting and yet difficult to get a handle on. I'd love to hear your hot takes on canonical classics and get recommendations on the more obscure masterpieces of the genre. A huge subject to tackle, I know, but I know you are both up for the challenge. Thanks again, Alex.
Well, I think you kind of get it there where like it's such a huge genre. You may as well say like action movies. You know?
It's tough. I can understand maybe doing it only because it's like, you know, English language listeners will have no entryway into it.
So how would you define wuxia films? They're sort of
Flying swordsman films, wire work.
Costumes, swords.
Yep, they're often based on, you know, a genre of novels that are called wuxias, which is like chivalrous knight, about honor and things like that.
Classic examples would include
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
A Touch of Zen
Yep.
and Ashes of Time by Wong Kar-wai.
Yeah, and I think that, as a letter writer pointed out, they're a little bit difficult to get into it sometimes because they're very convoluted. They're often adapting like very long series of novels that were published as newspaper serials, but they're crushing them into 90-minute movies. There's a reason that they were a very popular genre. Actually, they continue to be a popular genre. That's all mainland China pumps out these days, are wuxia films, is that they're recognizable. In the case of mainland China, they're also probably easy to dodge political issues that you would have if you were making a modern day film.
Sure.
In that, like, oh, it's fantasy, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean, I love wuxia films, but I don't love them as much as, you know, Drunken Master ripoffs.
I mean, I love wuxia films only because, I mean,
they're hard to follow. You know what I mean?
Sometimes. I mean, especially if you're watching one with burnt in subtitles that was written in like 1991 by a guy who didn't care.
Yeah.
But they are hard to follow. I think that a lot of them, there is the expectation that you're coming to it with an understanding a little bit of the, you know, when we saw Legend of the Condor Heroes, the Troy Hark one that recently came out, that's expecting that you know the like background of it. But the reason I love it is that it's so imaginative, that you can do anything.
That's true, yeah.
And that's what I find really attractive, especially in the way in the 90s that people like Ching Soo-tung, the action choreographer and director, were figuring out ways of how do you portray the impossible on screen, but have it grounded in a way that there is a physical reality and impact that you're seeing. For example, the fantastical sights in something like Swordsman 2, the Jet Li picture directed by Ching Soo-tung. Watch that and you're like, wow, okay, I understand like practical, you know, the way explosions can like, like how do you illustrate like invisible beams? And they were so clever back then, which is why I don't really like the modern day wuxias, because it's like, oh, it's an invisible thing of CGI energy.
Yeah.
It's like not fun. There's no weight to it. It's not, you know, you can't really get into it. So that's why like the 90s has, and there's so many wuxias that came out. Like look at Ching Soo-tung's filmography, look at Letterboxd, we're at the top, watch those if you want to get into it. Chur Yun, the Shaw Brothers director, did a lot of famous wuxia adaptations as well. Who are the other guys? Like Troy Hark, he's very involved in Ching Soo-tung stuff as well. I mean, there's like the ones that crossed over in America, like Hero would be considered a wuxia as well. But if you really want to like get into it, I would highly recommend the Legend of the Condor Hero novels by Jin Yong that you can find in English translations. They were done in the UK. You can probably get them all over the place. They are very readable, and you'll read them and go, oh, I understand why people like this. This writer can make action exciting on the page, which seems impossible. He pulls it off. You'll understand why these are super popular. They're considered like basically like a Lord of the Rings-esque, especially in all the movies that has led from it. So would highly recommend checking out all that stuff. Maybe we'll do... The only thing about doing a wuxia episode is like, I don't want to burn through. Like, I'd love to do a Ching Su Tong episode, like Duel to the Death and all that stuff. So,
but I mean, we can do a Ching Su Tong episode.
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting sold on a wuxia episode.
The thing about wuxia is I'm so burned out about it because I've talked about it so much over the last 5 years in Blu-ray commentaries.
Okay.
So like, I think it's Stephen Teo has a book on wuxias. I read that thing cover to cover, but I will say some of the commentaries I did, like on Wolf Devil Woman, they're lost of time. Maybe I'll post it online because that commentary is a 90-minute discussion of what is wuxia, how do you get into wuxia, because I didn't really have that much stuff to say about Wolf Devil Woman. That's a good reminder. I'll post that commentary if it's not already online, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, I need to post this. Someone in Discord will be like, you did 2 years ago. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I guess I don't have to do that then. So watch this space. There'll be more wuxia content before you know it. So our next letter is from Gabe, and he asks, hey, Justin and Will, I live in Chicago, and in the past year, there's been a lot of drama at our theaters about poor crowd behavior, especially laughter at inopportune moments in older movies. While I would agree this has probably been a problem overall, I do think laughter can be more complicated response than it seems, and some serious movies are actually quite funny. I find Todd Haynes' Safe devastating, absurd, and hilarious, for instance. Do you think I'm giving audiences too much credit? Do movies ever cause you to laugh in pain, anguish, or just at an intense mix of emotions they're causing you to feel? Love the show, Gabe.
You know, it's interesting you should say that this is happening in Chicago, because I remember seeing some discourse about a screening of The Shrouds in Chicago, where some people thought there was too much laughter, too much of the wrong laughter.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is a funny movie. And the thing about the Shrouds is it's an uncomfortable movie, and Cronenberg isn't necessarily telling you when to laugh, but it is a funny movie. You know, when you did your Laser Blast Film Society screenings, Justin, you would often put an anti-irony warning at the start, where you'd say, you're encouraged to laugh, but like, don't be a dick about it. Don't be Tom Servo.
Yeah, it's not about you. That's what it comes down to at the end of the day.
But also it's like, I think we've all been to certain screenings, you know, particularly if it's like a rep theater where you're showing an older movie.
A David Lynch movie. That's often
David Lynch is a classic example. But then again, David Lynch...
Their movies are funny as well.
Yeah, and like a movie like Blue Velvet,
It's so hard. You cannot be the laughter police. Like, you cannot tell someone to stop laughing.
In Blue Velvet, the scenes with Dennis Hopper and Isabella Rossellini are like horrifying, but like they're not without humor.
But it's like, what is a laughter reaction to? Like, and I think that is... And, you know, you can't really be the judge of this and, like, bring down judgment. But, like, are they laughing at it because they think they're better than the movie? That they don't... What's on screen is like, I can't believe they're doing this because they're bad filmmaking. That is a very specific kind of laughter I do not like.
And I hate the kind of laughter that's like, it's an old movie. And
it's dumb.
And they're saying something that's old.
Yes,
you know?
Exactly.
I hate that.
But you can laugh because of that as well, right? So it's that tricky balance. Yeah. Like, you can't tell someone to stop laughing unless, it's tough because you don't know how people will react to it, right? You could be braying like a hyena, and that's just how you laugh. So.
My rule of thumb is no jokes.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear your jokes. If you're like whispering it respectfly to your friend. I don't know. It's a complicated thing.
Because like I was at a Tarkovsky movie, and like I like leaned over.
And you were going, whoa!
No, yeah. I leaned over in my seat, and it made like. And the guy like turned around in front of me, and I was like, all right, I'm out of here. I can't stand. Like, we're in the temple of cinema here.
Sure.
And the thing about like that is, unless they're like screaming at the top of their lungs, you can always get up and move. Like, just go to another seat. Yeah. But reserve seating, Justin. The movie started. There's no one. Just go to another seat is what I'll say. If you want to tell someone to shut up as well, just say it politely. Because the thing is, it builds up in people. Like, they can't like, oh my God, I can't believe this person is doing this. And like, they'll turn around and be like, can you shut up? You're starting from a position of anger right there. And that other person is going to be like, how dare you tell me to shut up? Mm-hmm. You see this all the time in cinema. If you just turn around, you play, hey, could you quiet down a little bit? Maybe they'll ignore you. You can do it again. Then you can like level up your anger level as you go. But if you start angry, the person that you're telling will not be like, oh, well, they sure told me to be quiet and I'll listen to them.
One last thought I have on this is I feel like every movie screening becomes its own unique interaction between the movie and the audience. And so there are movies I've seen. This is particularly true of seeing movies like in wide general release. Like sometimes you'll see a movie with a particular audience that just either really loves the movie or really hates the movie. And you can't control that. And that becomes its own thing. And I would say just ride that wave. Like I remember going to see Darren Aronofsky's Mother just at the Yonge and Dundas here and just feeling the audience hate the movie. There's a moment in that movie where like the baby gets killed.
Yeah.
Where you felt the audience, just a Saturday afternoon audience, go like, fuck no. and filing out as if they like just saw an atrocity. You know, I remember going to see like Ong Bak with a general audience of them like just cheering on the movie.
Like when I saw The Raid in general release, people were cheering through that movie as well.
I saw Inherent Vice. I'm sure I've said this before. I saw Inherent Vice on Boxing Day in Times Square with an audience full of people who couldn't get into the Woods.
Yeah.
They hated it.
Inherent Vice.
And I feel like, I don't know, I'm grateful to have had that experience just because it's like that was a unique way to watch Inherent Vice with a fucking grindhouse audience that hated it.
Is there any other filmmaker other than Darren Aronofsky who has just like sucked so much for the rest of his career while still staying in the same level, right? Like some filmmakers, they start indie, they just sell out, they kind of go away. But this is a guy who's like, no, I'm like a real artist, but he does it in like the most pathetic and like, oh man, what are you doing kind of way.
Yeah. Was Darren Aronofsky ever good? What was his
Pie?
Pie.
I like Requiem for a Dream.
Requiem for a Dream.
It's fine.
No, it's
Pie. I liked. I remember seeing that was the first film of his that I saw.
Sure.
And then what else did he make other than that?
Well,
The
Noah.
Fountain. I like Noah. The Fountain. Mother. And did you see his new movie? It's basically just like a Guy Ritchie Snatch ripoff starring Austin Butler.
Well, I hope it's fun.
Yeah. Do people still like him though? There's still Darren Aronofsky super fans.
It's interesting because like when we were in high school, there
so many.
There were.
Yeah. Let me just, I'm at a friend's house. Let me knock over this bong that's on the top of a Requiem for a Dream DVD.
You know what's a good movie is The Wrestler.
Yep, that's a good movie.
I think I would stand by that. That's his most normal movie.
Oh yeah, The Whale.
The Whale, which made me weep when I saw it.
Does he have people who are like, oh, you're great, Darren Aronofsky? I can't imagine that. He's an AI guy now. I'm like, oh man, of course you are.
Yeah. God.
We're finally giving the power of film. Boo, get out of here. You suck, Darren Aronofsky. Anyway, do you know he was going to direct a Batman movie at one point, and Batman was not going to be from a rich family. He was going to be poor. And he wasn't really going to have a Bat cave. He's mostly just going to have a used car.
Okay, just make a new character then.
It's like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's why Darren Aronofsky.
Oh, right. He was going to do Batman Year One.
Yeah, he was going to do.
Based on the Frank Miller comic.
Very loosely around the Frank, but kind of ashamed of
and then they made Batman Begins instead.
I remember when The Fountain came out, I went to go see The Fountain theatrically, and he was like the underdog. He's like, they don't want to support me. They don't want to, he released a director's commentary online himself because they wouldn't put it on the DVD.
Wow.
That was probably the last gasp. What did he do after The Fountain? The Wrestler, right?
The Wrestler, yeah.
Yeah, and
then Black Swan.
Oh, Black Swan. I forgot about that. Yeah, that was one that, I
like Black Swan.
I like Black Swan, and that popularized Satoshi Kon would like a word with Darren Aronofsky and everything that he's ripped off from him, but that's a conversation for another day. So on Patreon this week, we haven't done a big old broad topic in a while. So we're going to be talking about the future of cinema.
That's right. We're going to be a couple of Criswells as we anticipate what's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. We're going to talk about what we think about distribution, audiences, the movies that are going to come out, how cinema will be treated. So if you want to hear all of our, you won't hear these thoughts anywhere else.
And we're shooting from the hip.
Oh, yeah. People loved the last episode. We shot from the hip. More comments on Patreon. Great American movies. Or no, what was the American movie?
What are American? Did they like that episode or
Some people did. Some people did not. And all I'll say is, we're just making it up as we go along.
The people who did not were probably Americans who are mad we were making fun of their country.
Well, some people said, well, Canada's just as bad. Yes, we know. Canada is just as bad.
And actually, Canada's really embarrassing, too, because, all of the saber rattling that Donald Trump was doing about annexing us, you know what our response was? To bring over the fucking King of England to do a speech. That's how pathetic we are.
All right. So the future of cinema at patreon.com/The Important Cinema Club.
And next week, what are we doing next week?
Vroom, vroom. We already talked about it, Will. Hal Needham.
Oh, Hal Needham. Oh, man. Can't wait. So Smokey and the Bandit.
Yep.
Cannonball Run.
Yep. I said Hooper. Maybe throw Rat in there. That's an 80s film.
Okay.
What is an 80s Hal Needham film like?
Oh, this is so great. So
Who's Hal Needham, though? For people who don't
Hal
know.
Needham is one of the great American stuntmen.
Yep.
In fact, won an honorary Academy Award as a stuntman, the first stuntman to ever win an Academy Award. And then he became an auteur of of Burt Reynolds' car chase movies. And, he's the people's filmmaker.
That's right. His filmography, not very well loved, except for a few brief instances like Cannonball Run, which was a huge hit.
I mean, Smokey and the Bandit.
Smokey and the Bandit, that's what I was thinking of, yeah.
Is a mega hit.
Yeah. Speaking of Mega, I am not a fan of Megaforce. We will not be talking about that movie, even though it's right up there where it's like, I believe... Was it Golden Harvest who helped fund it? There's some Hong Kong money in there as well. That movie is very dull. I've done it on No Such Thing as a Bad Movie, if you want to hear my thoughts on that one.
I mean, I'll tell you about Cannonball Run. I listened once to the director's commentary on Cannonball Run.
Really?
This is what I did back when I was single.
Yeah.
I would listen to the commentary on Cannonball Run, and you'd think, well, this is a terrible movie. Surely he's ashamed of it.
He loves it.
He loves it. Like he and his, I guess, the writer or whatever are talking about the movie, and they keep being like, still funny. You could put
I love that.
You could put this movie out today and people would still find it funny. They're just saying that.
As opposed to the Jim Abrams, rest in peace, commentary on Jane Austen's Mafia, where he and the writers are like, what are we referencing here? I don't even know. Like, what is this? That joke was okay. Like, those spoof movie commentaries, they're the best. Like, the Zuckers on, like, Airplane and Top Secret.
The Airplane commentary is great because they run out of things to say halfway through, and the second half, they're just quiet. And they're like, I can't believe you bought this.
I don't remember that one. And I think of the Top Secret one where the whole commentary is them being like, ugh, we didn't nail it. We didn't do it. We needed more of a through line. Ugh, no, this doesn't work. And Jim Abrams, who was also on the commentary, was like, no, this is funny, guys. Like, come on. Top Secret being probably their funniest
Their
film.
best movie, yeah.
Yeah, at this point in time, even though that was not a success when it was released. So that's what we're doing next week. Hal Needham. And until then, my name's Justin Decloux.
I'm Will Sloan.
Thanks for listening.
Well, I'll tell you about a couple other movies I watched when I was sick. All I could do was watch kung fu movies, so I watched.
All you could do is watch kung fu movies.
So yeah,
They better be dubbed.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
Crystal Fist. No,
Classic.
not Crystal Fist. Sleeping Fist. I've seen Crystal Fist.
Crystal Fist being the Billy Chong movie
Billy Chong was a sort of Jackie Chan clone.
from Indonesia.
Yeah,
Who for 1 week was going to take the role of Wong Fei Hung from Jet Li. And I don't know the story of what happened, but it didn't end up happening.
coulda, woulda, shoulda.
Yep.
But no, I watched 2 Bruceploitation movies in beautiful widescreen transfers. I watched Blind Fist of Bruce, which is a Drunken Master ripoff, but it has Bruce Lee in it.
Yeah.
And Simon Yun.
Could Simon Yun maybe have been driven to his death from starring in 1,000 movies from like 1979 to 1981, where around he died?
I think even less than that. It was like 1980.
Yeah.
It's amazing. You search Simon Yun on Tubi. Remember, Simon Yun played the old master in Drunken Master.
And
Snake
the other
and the
one,
Eagle's
Snake and the
Shadow.
Eagle's Shadow.
And he became so popular for like a year. It was just like,
And then he died.
I just can't, it's inexhaustible how many movies he
And
was
Simon
in.
Yun being the father of Yu Wo Ping.
To me, here is what cinema is to me. Cinema is Simon Yun, who's like 75 years old, throws a couple punches, and then it cuts to somebody who's obviously a stunt double.
Love it.
Much thinner and taller than him, wearing the same wig, doing incredible acrobatics seen from the back, and then cut back to Simon Yun. That to me is cinema. And then I also watched Return of the Tiger, which features Bruce Lee fighting Paul Smith.
Yes, I've seen this one because I believe I have the German Blu-ray of this.
So do I. I just got it in the mail this week, and I was very happy to. The German Blu-ray.
Paul Smith, we all know him. He's Bluto and Popeye. He's one of the bad guys in Sam Raimi's Crime Wave.
Midnight Express.
Yep. Pieces. He's the gardener in it.
That's right. And this is amazing about Paul Smith. He's in movies with 2 different Bruce Lee clones.
Wow.
Because Bruce Lee is in Pieces.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Bad Chop Suey,
That's
as the
right.
joke goes. Paul Smith, a guy that Sam Raimi hated working with so much that Sam Raimi dubs over Paul Smith's voice in Crime Wave.
Well, it's interesting. On the Pieces Blu-ray, there's an interview with Paul Smith.
Me and Will, we watched this, I think, hour-long interview of just him sitting in a chair talking.
Right, living in Tel Aviv, which is where he spent his later years. He was being interviewed. He was asked about Crime Wave, and he said, yeah, Sam Raimi was still finding his way at the time.
Yeah. And they ask him, like, would you work with him again?
He said, I would love to work with Sam Raimi again. It's like, I don't think he wants to work with you.
No way. Rest in peace, Paul Smith.
Yeah.
But Bluto!
Iconic. And, I love him in Return of the Tiger, which, despite the title, is not a sequel to Exit the Dragon, Enter the Tiger. And in fact, there's a scene where you see the poster for that movie on the wall in Paul Smith's office, which is really cool. First half of the movie, pretty boring, very talky. Second half, though, a lot of cool stuff, including, the big Bruce Lee Paul Smith fight scene, which you've been waiting for.
Paul Smith's a very limber man, I assume.
I mean, as Shelley Duvall said, he's large.
Yep. I think Olive Oil said that, not Shelley Duvall herself. Yeah. Unless she said it in an interview I'm not familiar with.
Well, it's undeniable. So we've got stuff from fans, right?
Yep. What a transition. We've got stuff from fans. We have a P.O. box. You can find the address of it in the description of this episode and most episodes that I post.
And we just want to shout out some people who have been very nice to us.
Yeah, someone sent us 2 t-shirts of the cast of Peking Opera Blues just on a black shirt. I don't know if you made this, if you found it. Thank you very much. It's a little odd that it's just 3 women on the front of a shirt, but then you can explain someone when they ask, which no one will ever do.
Yeah.
Ever. But you know.
I also just want to shout out friend of the show, Jeffrey Schwartz. Great documentary filmmaker.
He wrote a very nice letter because he was pals with Gary Graver many episodes ago.
Sent us a wonderful pile of documentaries and Blu-ray releases he's been involved with.
So these movies, like, I'm familiar with some of them. I didn't know he had made them, like I Am Divine.
About the John Waters star.
Yep, that's right. Tab Hunter Confidential. Also Spine Tingler, the William Castle story. That's a classic from back in the day.
And I'm especially happy to have this. He sent us a Blu-ray of Can't Stop the Music, the Village People film, also featuring Steve Guttenberg and Valerie Perrine, which has his commentary on it. Well, him and Bruce Vilanch.
Bruce Vilanch? Wow.
The god.
What a get.
The Hollywood Square himself.
I feel like I would own this if I knew that Vilanch was doing a commentary on this. Any like hacky variety show in Hollywood, there is a 98% chance Bruce Vilanch wrote it. I was listening to a podcast about a Super Mario Brothers ice capades from like 92, a special where Mr. Belvedere is King Koopa in it. And who wrote it? Bruce Vilanch.
I think Bruce Vilanch was involved in the Star Wars holiday special.
He was indeed. All right, coming up an Informed Cinema Club episode about Bruce Vilanch.
Well, we'll watch Get Bruce, the documentary about him.
Is there a documentary? Oh, yeah, and it came out in like the late 90s, right? It wasn't...
Yeah, it was in Blockbuster.
Wow,
and
I've never seen it.
And it's because he was Billy Crystal's main writer on the Academy Awards.
Oh.
And so Billy Crystal
were like,
fever.
I was going to say, people were like, I need to know who gives them all those great quips. Who gives the jazz man voice?
It's funny, like back then, like back 15 years ago, I probably would have been like, Bruce Vilanch, he's a hack.
Yeah.
But now I kind of like him. And maybe it's just, politicians, ugly buildings, it all gets respectable if it lasts long enough. But I don't know. I feel of more generous spirit. I like Bruce Vilanch.
I would also like to tip my hat to Jeffrey Schwartz in that, not only for all the Blu-rays that you sent, but I love to pick up these documentaries and be like, oh, does he do commentary on all of them? Yes. There's nothing better than like a commentary on a documentary because you want to know the stories behind all the stuff that happened. He also sent us, I'm very excited to watch, I didn't even know this existed, Vito, the life of gay rights activist Vito Russo, who's most famous for writing The Celluloid Closet. And so it's a documentary about him. And I mean, me and Will have actually been talking about doing an episode about him for a long time. Actually, I have a biography about him as well.
Yeah, we definitely should.
So thank you very much, Jeffrey. And again, if people want to send us stuff, you can do it at the P.O. Box. What do you want to see arrive in that mailbox? Movies? This is funny is that like Blu-rays is tough because you go like, does Justin or Will have them? Do they not? I don't own any of these. So perfect.
What do I want to see arrive? I want 2 reels that say the missing footage from the Magnificent Ambersons.
Yeah. Oh man. If anyone has some rare 16mm prints they just want to shoot off into the void. Did you see someone was selling a print Bela Lugosi meets a Brooklyn Gorilla? It always pops up every now and then, but this one had like bad vinegar syndrome and like and it's like I don't know if it's worth it going into that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would do a new Blu-ray instantly. We record a new commentary for it. Like,
yeah, we should have that.
I know. It always shows up under the other name. What is it called?
Boys from Brooklyn. That was the TV title.
Yeah. If anybody sees a 60mm print show up, just let us know. And
I got a 60mm print recently for like $35 of Wheeler and Woolsey's Half Shot at Sunrise.
Now, the thing about those ones is, and why Will didn't tell me, I can't release that because that's a Universal picture.
Goes into public domain next year.
It does?
1930.
Wow. Wheeler and Woosley.
Yeah.
Do they have any other movies that go in public domain that they like pump out a bunch around that time?
I think they had at least one in 1929.
Yeah. Wheeler and Woosley, comedians that at the time they were just like dumped out, forgotten. And if you want them on Blu-ray, you buy them in like one DVD that has 7 movies on it. And that's it. I think, man, back in the day, Marx Brothers, Wheeler and Woosley, one like 20-minute episode. We burned through it.
Yeah, we're going to have to do that again.
Yeah, Wheeler and Woosley, I mean.
Yeah,
Marx
absolutely.
Brothers. Yeah,
Marx Brothers, you already know about.
Yeah, but Diplomaniacs, round 2 is what I say.